Yo, yo, my sovereigns, what up? This is Boba Fett,
Bubba Fett, Bubba Fett, Bubba Fett.
uncensored on the internet, with episode 98 of Splinterlands 101. Joining us once again, co-hosts of the show, finest gentleman who ever lived, Matt Clark.
And here's Matt Clark. He's one of the finest gentlemen that ever lived.
Howdy, howdy.
The man behind the Pouffe Pousse, Geotrix.
And Pouffe Pousse.
You're looking at him right here.
And our guest for this evening, a man literally who needs no introduction. And when you watch any shows and TV say, our guest tonight needs no introduction, and then they go ahead and introduce him anyway. Well, I'm not going to do that because you literally need no introduction.
Nice.
Right?
I refuse to say this man's name.
We did originally, we were hoping to reach out and have Aggy on the show for our episode 100. But timing being timing, we had to take, Matt's going away for some holidays. I'm going to Perth for 3 weeks, may or may not have internet before I head off to Mexico. So you said you were available tonight, so we just jumped on the opportunity, and welcome to episode 98.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for hosting me.
Alrighty. So I think everyone's heard your background story with yourself and Matt in the pub and all the rest of it. I doubt if any of our viewers have not heard that. But that's usually how we start the show. Fill us in on your background. How did you end up here? And like personally myself, I was a huge fan of PAL. I'm 100% behind what it stands for. And when I first started on Steam, like that, just the minnow support thing was awesome for me. It like really got me going, past those 1 and 2 cent post rewards. So we're all fans here on the show. So I think to start off, I still want to throw it open to you. I don't hang out a lot in Mavs, so I know you pop in and out of there, but I think a lot of people in this Splinterverse haven't heard a lot from you since the change up. So we've heard Matt on the town hall explain to us what happened. So just to get the ball rolling, why don't you just fill us in on, from your perspective, your point of view, what happened, and we'll just roll from there.
What did he say? I haven't been chiming into all of those. So before I run off and ruin whatever the official story is, why don't you tell me roughly what he said? Try to keep it brief, and then maybe I'll respond, because that one is not like So let's start there. What was the gist of what he said? Matt, hit me up.
Yeah, I'll dive in there. So he was essentially said, I never wanted to be CEO, which I think we'd all agree is the case. He's never sort of wanted to be that, but the board made the painful decision that it was a necessity for a financial perspective, that the markets hadn't turned around like we thought they would. The marketing budget was potentially an existential threat to the game, and so more cuts needed to be made to the marketing side of things, and that part of that would be Matt being taking over as the CEO, and you obviously being looking after the Invennium, the GLS side of things, and I kind of feel like that's your focus anyway. That's your forte, is building the new thing and bringing the people in and sharing the vision. That was my personal take anyway. So I don't feel like he threw you under the bus at any point. I think he's was quite respectful about it, and sort of said, I'm taking on the mantle regretfully. But I guess it's like anything. If we've heard one side of the story, you always want to sort of, when the dust settles, get the other side. And just if there's any context that you wanted to share with the community, we're all open ears. If you wanted to just move on and talk about Invennium, that's entirely cool too.
Plenty of context I would love to share with the community. I don't think that it's entirely helpful. So Matt's story is perfect. Everything is awesome. That is the right way to view it. And that's the topic du jour. That's the way that that'll go. I mean, at a high level, I lost the vote, right? Like there's a board. I was putting forward one plan. He put forward another. I lost the vote, and that is his right. That is their choice. They have every, you know, it's like stake weighted, you know, it's, you need a certain number of people, you need a certain amount of stake, and they had a certain number of people and they had a certain amount of stake, and that's what they chose to do. I would have chosen to do something different, but whatever. I mean, my thought is that, and this is probably this one single thing has probably gotten me in more trouble than anything else. But I think we are already in the very beginning of a raging bull market, freaking astronomical tsunami of money. I guess there are parts of that some of that is just looking at charts and saying, hey, I think this is coming. And part of that is also being like a really deep conspiracy theorist and saying, okay, there's a lot of like things that are going on that look bad and seem bizarre. But I don't actually think that's what's brewing under the surface. And under the surface is actually something much better. So in that case, I'm a bit, you know, you have like the apocalypse, and you have somebody that's an optimist. I tend to call myself an apocalyptimist. So I think that there's like massive changes that are underfoot and nearly here. And I think, you know, I think I see that reflected in charts, and I think, you know, have this like inner sense and inner knowing that a tsunami of money is about to enter this space. That's not financial advice. I'm not asking anybody to do anything. That's just my perspective. And my board is not filled with people that share that opinion. So, you know, when we're spending more money than we're bringing in part because of like group decisions that we made that we knew would be long term. But you know, when the board made those decisions, it's like, okay, well, I can understand the perspective. To me, it felt like a bear perspective of like, no, these changes aren't happening. But like, you know, in my brain, you know, we were at like $20,000 for Bitcoin, and we're already what, 35, 36 right now. I know you guys use like Australian pesos or something. So
When it
it's
comes to
hard to.
crypto, I count everything in US dollars. I think we all
Right.
do.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, right. So it's like 36 to 38. I don't know what it is right this morning, but you know, that's like a 50% improvement within the month after I was canned. So, so far I feel like, hey, maybe this guy was right. We're in like a brief pullback right now. That's fine. You get pullbacks in bull markets, but you know, like another 1 week, maybe 2 weeks of like slow pullback after like a 50% freaking rise very rapidly is fine. And I think we're right back into the next stage of the bull, which is probably going to be face melting. So that's, you know, Matt's high level story, I don't think is like all that far off, but you know, there's a bunch of nuance to that I don't think I've been told verbatim. It's not very helpful if I share that alternate opinion about how it all went down. So I don't think I'm going to do like a ton of that, but you know, on the one hand, I can understand somebody that doesn't read charts, doesn't have like fundamental view that this thing is going skyrocketing and we are spending more money than we've been taking in. You know, you might want to change course, and that's actually not an unreasonable position. You know, I don't think that it has solved the problems that they thought it would solve, but you know, it's only been like a month and a half or so. So, you know, you don't get to solve gigantic, you know, problems in whatever markets you're facing in just a month and a half. So, you know, I've tried to have as much of an open attitude about this as I can. And then also some like philosophical attitude of, you know, the universe does things for a reason. So I don't know what that reason is yet. My guess is that it has something to do with if this market is about to explode and I have to, my like primary goal is to go take care of Invennium, there's probably something that's so big on the freaking horizon that I have to go figure out how to deal with it. That's my like spiritual radar, my spirit dar. I don't know. I don't know what's coming, but you know, I do my best with the crystal ball that I have to see into the future.
So it just like you don't want to be in the firm of like the next coming bull and so forth. Like, well, as soon as Aggy left, Bitcoin went through the moon. That's why that's why we've been in a bear market.
Maybe I tend to think I'm a very small cog in a very big clock, or just we are a tiny little vessel floating in a gigantic financial ocean, and there are things that are like infinitely more powerful than us, like the money printer at the Fed primarily. That seems to be a big one. Federal interest rates would be another gigantic one. And then sort of what that does to your like standard consumer, like the times that we're in, within that conspiracy realm or whatever, some people are going as far as to say we are in the Revelations chapter of the Bible right now, like that. You got to be like fairly dark times for people, like, and not just like the random smattering of outliers and extremists, but like a non-zero chance that like if I start running into the people that I follow, that they'll say something like we're in the Revelations chapter. So I think it's a combination of lots of different horrible hardships happening to everybody on this planet sort of simultaneously. Across, and the outcome that's like less extreme than dealing with Revelations is you just get these like, it starts with these single moms that are like they're in their van or in their truck and they're saying how hard the times are, like back in the 70s. So a lot of these single moms are now in their like 50s, 60s, whatever. So they could go reference back to the 70s or 80s where, you could go to college, you could buy your truck, you could work part-time and own a house. And that was sufficient. Your like mechanic job could go put that together. My grandfather bought a house down on the Jersey Shore. So this is more than the 70s. This is now like the 40s, maybe 50s, and he paid $5,000 for his house. And the guy was probably only making like 1 or 2,000, but like, that ratio of your house to your income, of your house being twice your income, that's not what most people are experiencing right now. Like if you're trying to live in the city, you're doing this on like a $50,000-$60,000 income, and your house alone is like 600,000 if you're lucky. It's probably 1 million or more, which means that like all of your earned income is basically going straight to rent. And these are like giant policy. The outcomes of these are like big policy problems that we are all experiencing. And there will be times where we sort of like catch this, right? In the next bull market, this crowd in particular, we know that infinitely printing is bad, and we know that the sort of way that this all goes is not long-term sustainable, and we're going to go ride a wave of crypto from this sort of like absolute terrified fear to this massive greed, and there should be short-term gains for everybody until the next cycle begins. But that is not an easy time to go build a like play to earn gaming platform, right? Like this one meme has been in my head forever. It's Will Ferrell, and there's like there was an artist that was complaining that her life feels like this, and it's Will Ferrell screaming at the top of his lungs while surrounded by fire. Anybody want to buy a JPEG? And like I feel that to some degree. Like who wants to buy a JPEG right this second? I know that paying your bills is hard and getting food on your table is hard. Your partner is probably stressed the crap out. Everything looks like it's been down for 2 years. It's going to solve that? More JPEGs. And there's a certain amount of ridiculousness that I feel with that. But then again, you know, these markets are cyclical. Things come back around. We already seem to be at the early stages of a pretty fast and big turnaround. But you know, it still feels like, you know, we're standing in Revelations, and I'm asking people, hey, would you like to buy a JPEG? In my defense, I'm not shouting it. I'm just offering it, you know, like, hey, look, I know you're on fire. It kind of sucks, but you know what might help you be distracted from that experience? The JPEG.
Even just around like end times or whatever, like this you mentioned apocalypse, and immediately through programming or conditioning, people just have this cataclysmic destruction, fireballs, comets, asteroids smashing into the earth. But it's simply means a lifting of the veil. And I think that's exactly what's happening globally right now. The veil is lifting. People are getting to have a peek, many people for the first time, a little peek behind the curtain and seeing
The
a whole new
Australians
reality.
seem fairly advanced in this. So like, you know, I don't know what the actual audience is for this. So maybe I can loosen up. My American audience is probably not as far down the rabbit hole as a bunch of my Australians are. But you know, you guys have seen things like, hey, there seems to be there was a documentary that I really liked. And then what was it? It was called like What the FAQ, what the fact.
What the bleep do we know?
And the whole thing is basically like, it would appear that there's actually two different things. Whereas one, we thought that we were interacting with this like organic government, but we're actually, and you would think that it's and as far as I can tell, oh man, how do you shorten these things? I'm not very good at this. I stopped like purposely red pilling people a couple years ago. But it's something like, maybe as far back as in the United States, it would be something like the Civil War, right? We had a government, and that government was operating, but then you lost quorum because of the Civil War. So they were trying to figure out how do they operate the government. And one of the options was to go form a corporation, adopt the exact same bylaws, or like the actual laws, but now they're bylaws, and say, this is how we're running this corporation. And I think they might have actually had to have done that because they didn't have quorum to continue running the government when there was that whole Civil War thing. And I think that sort of like approach seems to have gotten very much out of hand, because they basically would form these corporations and say, we are representing that government. We're not actually the government, but we are representing it. And there was nobody in that government to say otherwise. So they sort of got away with it. And then over, you know, 150 years of that got very bastardized. And I think that the What the Fact movie was about this guy trying to import a car, and then kind of brushing up against all these taxes, fees, and things. But he was also very detail oriented, and he would realize that like, hey, this logo is not the same as that logo. This font is not the same as that font. You guys are doing things slightly differently than what is constitutional and allowed anyways. And he just kept running into things that made him say, you know, I actually think I'm dealing with a corporation, not a de jure government. And this corporation doesn't seem to have my best interest in mind. And so I think there's all these weird elements like that, where basically everything that we think of as public is actually a private corporation masquerading as a public entity that has, you know, some very small benefit for the rest of us, but is basically meant to go siphon wealth from your common people to a very select group of people. And I think that's what we're kind of undoing right now. You talk about lifting the veil. I think that we're actually in the process of sort of lifting that. And that's why I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that when whatever horrible structure we're under right now like collapses, I don't think it like collapses into some Mad Max like chaos. I think it collapses into something that's like a de jure government run by the people for the people, with, you know, hopefully there's not like giant revolutions that have to come about. I get the sense that a lot of the worst parts of this might already be over, and we're sort of in the last cleanup act. And again, that is an extreme position. I don't think that is common knowledge or common thought, but I have a very weird worldview, which then impacts, hey, what decisions am I going to make, and what do I think the world is going through? And my goal, there's this great Wayne Gretzky quote of something like, "You have to skate to where the puck will be," and that's how he was able to be a great skater and hockey player, was you skate to where it will be. And so I've had to, in this gig, I've had to like readjust the way that I think about things and try to skate to where things will be. And the things that I think will be are a much improved economic situation that will create a giant boon in a very short period of time. And the skating to where I think we ought to be is something like, I think the next kind of like round for crypto and alts and NFTs is like, we're on the precipice of it right now. Yeah, all of that's a weird way to say, like, yes, I'm aware that we were spending more money, but when I kind of take a global macro cyclic look at things, I actually think that we're at the like very early stages of the next gigantic mega freaking bull run. And I did my best to position us for growth. And the tool that I think will actually position us best is Invennium. The ability of this thing, like what we want in crypto, and in particular for crypto projects, is adoption. And the single best method for adoption, I think, is gaming. And if you want to get gaming adoption going on steroids, you don't try to add one player at a time. That's really slow. What you want to do is add one game at a time, or maybe even one gaming company at a time. And that came out of, I did sales for like 10 years. I did all this higher ed sales, and that company, like every other company, was trying to figure out, how do we increase revenue? And one of the things you can do is you can increase your deal size. And so you kind of have to stop working with like the smallest potential customer and really just focus on your biggest whale customers and figure out, how do I bring them in? Because it makes a lot more difference if you bring in something like Ohio State or Penn State, some gigantic school, maybe even school system, than it does if you bring in some like private liberal arts college that has 1,600 people in it, and there's like 10 people in the course that you sell a product to. So I basically apply that same logic to this game and to this whole ecosystem, and say the single most important thing we can do is adoption. And when you want to do adoption, you have to get bigger deals. If you want to get bigger deals, we have to get out of the way of like, how do I add one person at a time into this community? And more like, how do I bring a game that already has 10 million, 100 million downloads into this ecosystem? And that's eventually how we got to Invennium, which is like a product that's designed to onboard game after game after game. And then, why does that matter to Splinterlands players? Is because if I bring in 10 million people, some of them are going to convert to Splinterlands, and that's going to be a lot of buying pressure put on every single asset. There's like 17 gold foil Selenia skies. How many, if we bring in 1 million people that all want them, what happens, right? So that's my overarching theory. I guess I get to still implement good chunks of that, and the weird parts, which I couldn't get sort of everybody on board with. I didn't try that extensively, because I'm not going to sit here and be like, all right, guys, well, I know you're all business people that have benefited from the system, but like you all know that the system is collapsing underneath us, but there's better things in front. It's a weird background, weird story, but Matt Clark is nodding his head. So at least there's somebody here that knows that something different is coming. We're not living under this system forever. And I've done my best and continue to do my best to prep for that scenario, which I think is imminent. Disclosure of that is imminent.
Yeah, totally agree. And I've seen and appreciate your efforts in that regard for 5 years now. So don't think that's gone unnoticed. With Australia, I am seeing really excellent signs. So a bit of context, we like to say give them a go, right? Give everyone a fair go. And that's led us down the garden path in a lot of ways, because politicians and bureaucrats have stood up and said, oh, you need this rule. You need this rule. We need this new guidelines. We need this new, and we've all gone, oh, he really cares about it. We'll give him a fair go. And now you can't scratch yourself without needing permissions from 3 different government departments.
Yeah.
We don't have that appetite for freedom that the US has. We have that fairness, and if he really cares about it, then we'll let him pass his law. And it's really trapped us. We recently had the one of the ladies who was pushing the mask mandates here in South Australia early on. Come out and say, oh, we've got a resurgence of COVID.
That's
And
Arden. Jacinda Arden. What's her name?
she was New Zealand. No, this is Nicola Spurrier here in South Australia. She said, oh, we're having a resurgence, but we're not going to mandate masks again. And I had a whole lot of people I know say, I wish you would. I would love for you guys to mandate it again so that we can disobey you this time. So there's a real shifting of an appetite there. They're like this, like, give me an opportunity to defy you. I obeyed you last time. I gave you a fair go last time. Now I feel like a goose for having done that. So please tell me you're the boss of me. Tell me I have to do this thing again, because there's an appetite for rebellion now. It's really there. Something else. I went to a freedom lovers party recently, only a week ago, and one thing I noticed, I looked around and there was all of the women there were dressed very feminine. Flowing dresses, it felt like when you're talking about the 70s, it felt like a like a hippie meets conservative sort of a revival vibe, where we're back to basics, family values, but also freedom, a bit of weed being smoked, but like the left and the right that we used to have converging and just agreeing on, okay, we just need freedom from these people that want to control us. So I see a lot of reason to hope.
I wish we were at that. I mean, I see a lot of like blue-haired, angry feminist women, and a lot of like, a lot of like San Francisco style DA crime that is like, hey, we have to just let this crime happen. But I don't know. Again, I think the world is changing. And I think we're on the precipice of that too. I mean, my viewpoint politically and my viewpoint economically are aligned, because I think, when Splinterlands lost a bunch of money, and one of the ways that we lost a bunch of money is that we just said, all right, all we're going to do is hodl the coins. We're not going to sell them. We're not going to buy them. We're just going to hodl them. And in normal businesses, you don't worry about hodling your dollars. Having your dollars there is great. And with the interest of the Splinterlands and doing all of our things, I thought this was best, and I didn't get a lot of flack from it from my board, but we lost a lot of money, not that we like overspent or something, but just hodling those coins through bear markets, they lost a lot of value. And so 2 years ago, I said something like, all right, I have to teach myself how markets work, because I never want to experience that again. And as much as I love crypto and hodling, and I don't ever want to go trade out for fiat, there becomes a time that, things are so overpriced that you really have to like respect the fact that things can't go up infinitely forever without any kind of correction. I believe in the idea that Bitcoin basically is going to infinity. I believe that. I believe that we are going to go to an infinity amount, because there's only 21 million of them, but the governments are going to print money forever. The value of Bitcoin is infinite, but it's not infinite tomorrow. It's going to go through cycles of ups and downs. And I've come to respect that. And as part of that, I feel like it's really important in ways that it's not important in any other industry to sort of like track financial markets very closely and try to figure out where we are in those markets in order to be able to make better financial decisions, which wasn't something that I was quite prepared for. And I don't think anybody would really be prepared for. We're like one of the first ever crypto businesses doing this NFT thing. There's not a roadmap. There's not like, here's 10 other companies that have done this. Why don't you see what they've done? So I have some learning to do. I know I have some learning to do. But in this case, I spent a lot of time trying to learn how to like read charts and read financial markets. And one of the things that is backwards to the really good traders relative to the rest of everybody else is this concept that the price already includes everything. The chart already includes all knowledge about everything that's about to happen, and that these news events that you get are actually justifying the price, not the opposite. And I guess it's called a leading indicator, that the price is a leading indicator of news. And I would look at price and say, oh, I don't know exactly what news is coming, but here is some gigantic freaking news that's coming to justify what I'm seeing in charts. And that I think is not very normal. Most people are asking, you know, what happened? And then you would expect the price to go up. But the philosophy of the people that trade this way is basically like, somebody knows, somebody already knows, they already know what's going to happen. It's already priced in. They're already going to make that move. They already know what they're going to do. And so the price comes around, the price comes first, and then the news will happen later to justify that price. But you know, it was a person with money doing a thing with knowledge that happened first, and then the news about that thing comes later. So my political views and my trading views are pretty much aligned, because I see in my head, here's this chart. This chart is telling me that all these numbers are about to go sky high, and it's going to be freaking gargantuan. And to do that, you have to have some kind of gargantuan financial systemic change that I think has to be there to justify it. You know, it's like trillions of dollars that manifest in these charts. If we see Bitcoin go up to $150,000, $200,000 per coin, if it does that rather drastically, all these other things, there's going to be parts of that change. And so I started, one of the first ones was like, I started seeing banks collapse and then Bitcoin go up. And I'm like, okay, it wasn't on my bingo card that it's going to be US financial collapse of like the banking sector that's going to go lead into the next like giant bull run. But if I had to guess and point to something, it's probably that like, you know, huge money printing to go cover gigantic losses of banks is highly likely on my list. In part because the government almost seems to have done that intentionally. They went to the banks and they said, you guys have to hold treasuries. And so the banks invested tons and tons of money in treasuries. And then they rose the interest rates, making all those treasuries basically worthless on a very short-term basis. And so all these banks got caught owning all of these assets that the government told them they had to own. So there's something really fishy to me about how that happened, that now all these banks are going to collapse because of treasuries, which the bank required the banks to purchase, or that the feds required the banks to purchase. So there's very weird things that are happening, and I think we're going to see some gigantic changes. Some of those gigantic changes will involve printing absurd amounts of money, and a lot of that money is going to find itself in the one place that is meant to resist huge amounts of money, which is crypto. And I think we're already there. You know, you look at like bank bond rates in Japan going like changing. Like a couple basis points would be like a big move, and these things are moving by like 10, 20 basis points in like a day or a week. The thing's trading like a shit coin. Like an entire bond market for a country is trading like a shit coin, and that's not normal. I mean, I know I'm not like a 30-year macro guy, but that's not normal. Things are breaking, and it's not that long until we see gigantic changes happening. And that's what I think is going to fuel this whole like next round of crypto, is going to be like the death throes of various parts of our current financial system.
Yeah. And on that natural pause, I'll cut it there for editing, because Zoom is going to cut us off in 1 minute. So that was a good natural pause, and we can pick it up from there when we start. When Zoom cuts us off, it makes, because I use the free version, it makes us wait 5 minutes before I can start another meeting. So we just take advantage of that for the break. And how are you going for time? We've
I
got
got a little over 45 minutes. I have 48 minutes.
going to be perfect. It's going to be perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
My mind's
So
blown.
What's
yeah,
that?
like we're all on
My
the same
mind's blown.
page. We're here. We're all on
Yeah.
the same page with
Yeah.
the whole fiat scam and yeah, you
That's why I don't want to interrupt. I just want to listen to you, you know?
Lovely. All right. We'll have a 5-minute break then.
yep.
Yeah, we'll see you then.
See you in 5.
All right. Yeah, you'll shoot me a new link.
Yep, we'll shoot
Yeah.
you the new link.
All right.
Yep.
Easy
Sounds
peasy.
good.
All right. Talk
Thanks,
soon.
folks. Be right back.
All right. So, in summary, there, some of the things you're saying, like I've always thought that in relation to currencies and thoughts that attention is actually the only true currency that we really have. And we use the analogy of the skating, you want to be where the puck is. And to change that analogy slightly, if like imagine like downhill skiers, there's a very good reason that downhill skiers don't look at trees. But yet within the matrix, that's what they keep showing us. They keep showing us the trees. So people are looking at trees and focused and like giving all their energy into disaster. So to bring people into this space, whether like Web3, gaming, the crypto, do you think that it needs to be like, corporations have caught onto the whole, using sigils, emblems and so forth for people focus to give their attention to that and they draw their energy from that as people funnel it. Do we need like a symbol, a sigil, something for people to focus on? Or is that what people will naturally find when they're not looking at what they're being shown?
Well, the question has some premises in it that I don't perfectly align with. You said it's around attention. I think the real value is people. Like people are the value, and I think like even monetary value, all of it is ultimately underwritten by like your spirit, your consciousness, your will, your acceptance of that token for value, like you as the human. So like the attention to me is sort of like a derivative of that, but like literally it's just you as a person engaging is what gives these things value. And so my thought, is it, does somebody need a signal? Does somebody need a logo or some like visual descriptor? I don't think that's the magic. I think the magic is that you have to provide them value. And that, there has to be an exchange of if you put your soul, your time, your energy, your effort, your being, your attention, your thoughts, your social media sharing, your network, your friends, if you bring that, there's got to be some value that goes back to you as a person. And in the gaming space, I think that we have basically two options. One is entertainment. I will provide you entertainment. If you do those things, I will entertain you. And that might not sound massive, but like, especially when people are, you have like Maslow's hierarchy of needs of food, shelter, water, and all the basics. Once you have the basics, the most valuable commodity I think that exists is entertainment. That's how high I would place that. So I actually think that's a pretty fair exchange of if you give us this value, your value of your person, your acceptance, your activity, all of that, I will entertain you. And then the second thing is that I will also provide you a financial benefit for doing so. You get some tokenized version of that effort, time spent, whatever. All of your efforts get rewarded with this token. And it is a token of our appreciation that you get to earn this, keep this, trade it, sell it, do whatever. And I actually think that's a really fair and good trade. And like if I go and watch old episodes of TV shows, I get some like entertainment value, but I certainly don't get a monetary value for that. And depending on the show, I might not even get that much entertainment value for that. So I don't know. I think that what we're doing in this space is is a valuable and fair trade. I think that we are trying to trade it at a bizarre time in the world economy. So that's part one. And I think there are swings to this. You know, Bitcoin goes up and to the right, but it does so diagonally or in this like really wiggly path. And you know, on any given day, we feel the ups and downs. And apparently, these cycles can be, you know, 2 years up and 2 years down. But we're getting out of the down and into the up. And you know, this trade that I'm hoping folks will make for our business and our community should be getting more and more attractive every single day going forward until the next cycle where it starts going down. And this is just the nature of the beast that we are in. There seems to be this giant, it's almost like tidal. You know, that's how big this is. It is tidal. You have all this flow of money coming out and everybody's starved and it's painful and we're all broke and everything is hellish. And then the tide comes in and it's like, holy shit, there's more water than I ever imagined. This is euphoria and amazing and all of that. And then the tide goes out. And, you know, I think a bunch of that is like the halving cycle. I think some of that is just like the monetary cycle. I think that there's a couple of these factors that are like impacting that tide at the same time. So there's not one thing I'd point to, but a couple. But the tide's coming in. That's where I think we're at. And in a very brief amount of time, we are going to see this. I mean, I'm thinking. I said my problem is that I anticipated all this stuff earlier. So I started saying in June, hey, we're going through these monumental cycles, and this money's coming in. And I said that since June, and it didn't really happen until like September. And so the like extra months that we were waiting, I don't think of that as like, oh crap, I'm wrong. I'm looking at that and being like, oh crap, I'm wrong about the magnitude. This is even bigger than I thought it was going to be. And I already thought it was going to be massive. So the delays don't make me bearish. They make me like, oh my God, I can't imagine how big this tide is going to be when it comes in. And again, do I actually have a crystal ball? No. And I'm not trying to give financial advice because I'm not saying there's anything that people should do with their money. But you know, I always think it's important that people understand what like my brain is doing, because I run a company that's like pretty central to this ecosystem, and people are going to want to know, you know, what does this guy think? And if you are like, hey, I'm a bear and the Bitcoin's going to 10,000 and everything is doomed, then you know you probably don't want to follow the things that I'm doing because I'm thinking the opposite. But it's meant for your information, not for your like, you know. I'm not making a direct request of anybody.
Yeah. It's like with the tsunami's coming in, the first thing that happens is the ocean gets sucked out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Everyone walks out going, oh, and then it's too late. And
Yeah.
On that same analogy with a wave, you don't start paddling when you see the wave.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you wait, you think, oh no, or what, let this one pass, and then you feel yourself getting sucked out. You start paddling, and those
As
that don't
hard as
know
you
go,
can.
yeah, and everyone else is going, why are you paddling? Why?
Because I know it's coming, homie. I know. Yeah, you might not be able to turn your head, but I can, and I see what's there. Yeah, I love the water analogies. I grew up, you know, body surfing on the coast, and I learned how to ride waves. And what you described is exactly right. And that's how you catch a wave. You paddle out in front of it, and you keep paddling as hard as you freaking can, hoping that when the wave is there, you have enough momentum going to actually catch it. And so that's some of the reason why I was willing to go like as a CEO of Splinterlands and further now as CEO of Invennium. You know, I'm willing to spend more money than what we're making, not because I think that's a long-term business plan that's sustainable and good, but because I am very intentionally attempting to go catch this wave and am willing to go put myself and my company to the hazard to ride it, because when you ride it, the like exponential gains. I played a lot of poker, right? And when you play poker, you have kind of you have what is the odds that I will get the card that will let me win the hand, but then you also have to calculate how much money can I earn. And like you wouldn't necessarily bet the farm if there's a very small chance that you win. But if there's a very small chance that you win a gargantuan sum of money, then the risk reward is there. And that is really the crux of poker, is knowing the difference of like, what is a good bet and how do you bet this? And also, what is the risk and versus what is the return? Is there a reason for me to do this? And my favorite way to play is actually this, where you're comparing expected returns or like expected pot odds. So like the current pot odds wouldn't merit the bet, and so you shouldn't participate. But if I catch and the other guy catches something slightly worse, then like I know that person might be like going all in because they're very aggressive, and so you can start anticipate now. But in the next round, if I shake up my crystal ball and I look at the next card and I think about what is likely to happen, you can sort of do these expected pot odds. And that's where my brain's at, of like the expected pot odds after this like financial tsunami hits us is gargantuan. And so basically doing anything that helps us get prepared for that, even at some peril to the business, is worth it, because if it pays off, it's not, this next round for this company is not going to be in the like millions of dollars. Value will probably exceed billions of dollars. And that is a financial bet and risk that I'm willing to take. And I imagine that a lot of people in this community are willing to take too, because most people in like the altcoin space are not like, hey, I hope I get a 5% return for the rest of my life. You're in the altcoins because you're kind of like a YOLO bastard. So like, come YOLO with me. Let's go see how this goes. And if it pans out, it's a gargantuan sum. I mean, I wouldn't, it's not uncommon in altcoins to experience like 1000x. Like that's entirely possible. And it wouldn't shock me if we see in this next bull market something that's like that. Will we get there? I don't know. But if we get there, will I be shocked? No, I'll probably be in euphoria, and you might not be able to even like speak English to me at that point. But it'll be fun. That's for sure.
I think the point I'd like to make is the disambiguation. So if you can get in the headspace of, okay, we're ramping up and we're right in the bull run, and people are looking for options. Where do I put my money? They can have, there's a sea of options, but most of them are brand new, which means that there's a real risk that they're a Ponzi scheme, they're a pyramid scheme. There's some way I don't follow the economics. It looks good, but and then you look at something like Splinterlands and say, okay, they've had 5 years of not collapsing, right? They've had 5 years of it didn't all just fall apart, and actually turns out it was a pyramid scheme, it was a Ponzi scheme. That hasn't happened. So all those people who are looking at this wealth of options, seeing the excitement, catching the FOMO, and thinking, where am I going to go? So many of them are going to be looking for which of these projects has a long history of not collapsing, and that's where we're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I think there's two things to consider. Not collapsing is really the like Warren Buffett don't lose money. Like the thing that will break you is if your investment goes to zero, right? So like Matt and I, we have lots of things that we're differences, and lots of risk taking that I'm willing to do that I guess he's not. But we've also been very good at not putting our money into things that will literally go to zero. The like Web3 internet is like, would you care for this steaming pile of shit? How about this one? Would you care to invest all your money here? Here's another option. Oh, good sir, I have this one. And Matt and I have been very good at not, eating off of any of those plates. The second thing, so that's on the downside. So you got to protect yourself on the downside. And I think the exciting parts of this ecosystem is really the upside and like the upside potential. I am as convinced of this upside potential as I am of any other. The growth of an ecosystem, or like the price of the tokens, that growth is oftentimes called beta. And I think that we're in one of the highest beta ecosystems that exist. And I think it's because of that flywheel. And we've seen, we're still at like the very beginning of this bull run, at least in terms of altcoins. I know Bitcoin has basically doubled since the lows, and it's half the all-time high. That's all well and good. It doesn't really do much for altcoins yet. But in short order, I think we're going to see Bitcoin go up, and then all these other alts are going to follow, and we're going to get this whole pattern of, holy crap, you have expensive Bitcoin, let's go spend it, circulate it, bring it into the high caps, bring it into the alts, bring it into everything, push it into NFTs, and it's all going to be insane. Like in the next year or two, I don't know, but I think it's already starting. And in that, the goal is to sort of like maximize gains. And I think that this flywheel is the thing that allows us to do that better than any other token ecosystem out there. Bitcoin might get a lot of demand. All right, there are people that are going to be interested in that, but you're not like burning Bitcoin. You're not getting it out of circulation. You kind of might put it in the hands of like some religious zealot that'll never get rid of it. That's useful and good, but it's not the same as buying and burning it every single day. And so, in a bear market, the flywheel isn't going to do shit because there's not enough demand for the product. But in a bull market where everybody's going nuts for this thing, to not only have a bull market, but to then be like, well, half the people are buying and burning the SPS every day. I think things are going to get like beyond human comprehension, right? Like that is my general take. And because I think that the changes in the world economy and the changes in the sort of crypto boom are close enough now to how much money Splinterlands has versus how they're spending, it makes me think, oh God, I don't even know what I'm going to do with myself in a year or two. I'll probably be the most insufferable human ever. But that's where I think that we're heading. That's where I think that we're going. I have poked around a little bit with that burning loop, that burning mechanism, to just see what that experience is like. And even now, I've burned some tokens, and I lost some tokens in so doing, but I also saw like my entire token value go up in that. So I'm like personally experiencing. So like if you're like a little minnow, the only reason that you burn is because you can't get DEC. Right, there's not enough of it out there. Everybody staked it on land. It doesn't exist. So the only way to get it is to buy and burn SPS, because you can't literally buy it. But if you're a whale, you're willing to go exchange small losses on a subset of your token for large gains on the rest of it. And I think we'll see a bunch of that. Maybe I'll be the only person burning, and I'm just like having some fun doing this and trying to see what it looks like. In practice and reality, when DEC is high, what does this look like to do? But if I'm not the only one doing it, and we're in this tsunami, and that those tokens are getting burned, then I personally get very excited for what I think that future looks like. Like that to me is a astounding amount of money beyond my normal comprehension of money. So I look forward to that. I think that's where we're headed. Again, not financial advice for anybody else, just trying to relate. This is what I see. This is what I'm excited about. This is what I think will happen. And Bitcoin's going to go up, and it's going to go up a bunch, but there's not a buying and burning mechanism within that. There's not like a slew of products behind it. It just doesn't, it's not going to operate the same way. And it's already like trillions. I know, and it's not $1 trillion yet, but it's like, hundreds of billions of dollars. So in order to make it move, you need hundreds of billions of dollars to come into that one asset. And for Splinterlands, the market cap is totally undervalued right now. So like our entire value is something like 25 million or something, like 30 million for SPS. Like that to move that is a very small amount of money necessary to make that move. And as long as these other conditions start rearing their heads, then it becomes very easy for that to move. So I get queasy kind of talking about economics and all that for this thing. But my take is the big picture is screaming tsunami of money, and the small picture to me is screaming we have one of the best setups possible out of anywhere in this entire cryptocurrency ecosystem to absorb that and have that be a benefit, not just to me personally, but to every single member of this community that owns cards, owns lands, owns Rooney, owns DEC, SPS, whatever. Like, I'm personally extremely bullish on what we're doing.
Sweet. Yeah. And on like the Invennium side of things, like, yeah, what's been happening? Because we haven't heard much in the Splinterlands space. On that, is there something you can share, or is this
So,
still?
So the main thing that we have to get done is Genesis League Goals is like a fun and playable game, but it is not a complete game. The two of the most important things I think are still missing. There's this concept called skills, which basically just gives the user a lot more choices of what they can do during their turn and their action. And it's so significant that I think that's basically like a missing component of the game. And then secondly is the rewards. So it's a play to earn game, but there's no rewards going out for the game right now. So those two things are a little bit broken. And that's what we're fixing maybe in November. My guess is that comes out in December. But when those two things are done, we've basically moved from like a functioning alpha into like an actual beta. And then we're gonna allow for some user testing to figure out what the players are really looking for in the next kind of like set of updates. But in the meantime, we're gonna release. Ultimately, I think this ecosystem is going to have three sort of silos in it. One is Splinterlands. Splinterlands is its own IP. It's like Disneyland. It's like Power Rangers. It's like He-Man. It's an intellectual property. It's a content. It's a theme. It's a game. It's a brand. And so anything related to that brand is going to live within Splinterlands. And you know, that could be tower defense. It could be other games. It could be, you know, you could do like a tactics game. You could do real-time strategy game. You could do any kind of game. But if it's got to be branded Splinterlands to be part of that. So that makes it like a pretty narrow niche of an ecosystem. And part of that's because in the white paper, there's not like additional reward pools. So the only reward pool that exists is for Splinterlands and land and tournaments. And, you know, there's some specific things, but there's not like a slush fund that you can tap into without like really drastically changing the white paper. So you're going to have this one silo that is Splinterlands, up and down, all things Splinterlands. The second thing that we did was Genesis League, and that's like a silo that's all sports. And our first thing was MLSPA. That was a great partnership to pick up. They're a great company to work with. They're wonderful. You know, like US soccer is exploding. You know, Messi coming over was like absolutely gargantuan for the sport. So we picked up this property right before like right before it exploded. And in the next bull market, I'm very bullish on this one too. And it had a lot of that same burning mechanism that's built into that. All that is coming. But that's all things sports. And so there's one more bucket that we need. And it's all kinds of games, no matter what, just like a dumping ground for all games. So if it's Splinterlands, it's going to go in silo 1. If it's sports, it's going to go in silo 2. And then we need a third silo, which is like a catch-all. And we're going to call that Arcade Colony. And I think that the earliest that Arcade Colony will actually like exist as a real website, you can go to Arcade Colony now. Actually, maybe that's not live anymore. Arcade Colony, colony.com. Yeah, it's not even live right now. So we have some things that we have to go put in place, but you know, we're basically forking goals. So as like the starting point. So it's not like we have to redesign everything all over again. It's, you know, it's a fork, but now it's a fork that's designed to host all kinds of games. And we have a game that's coming. We have a brand new game, and we haven't talked about it, and we don't want to spend too much time talking about it. But there's another game, and we're about 2 months away from, like, it's playable. I can go. There's a website called itch.io, which is where you can like upload web games. So what we did is we built the game inside of Unity. And you know, the way that we do things at Splinterlands is really freaking expensive. We use American devs. We're not using like third world devs. We actually use American devs, or primarily American devs. They're very expensive, and there's no like off the shelf tools that exist for us to build games. We have to build everything from scratch. So using all American labor and zero game help tools is very slow and very expensive. And to put that in comparison, the game that we're making is going to cost us, you know, less than $200,000 to build. So it's going to be very affordable for us to have built this. And then we're going to have, once it's built, and it's sort of already built because it actually exists and is playable on this itch.io website, which is just like the web version of the game. It's not Web3 enabled. It's just like a Web2 game. But this is what we're absolutely attempting to do. We want Unity, which is this very popular game engine. We want to be able to take any game off of Unity and turn it into Web3. So we have built the game. The game is currently in the like process of going from, you know, we're putting kind of the final touches on it, but it looks freaking sharp. And we want it to be, we're like, hey, if you want to play this game, you click this Unity box and you play it in Unity, and it's fun. It's fun like a Unity game, like any other Web2 game that you've ever played in Unity, which is like half the freaking app store. You know, these are fun games. And then what you can do is you can start buying things and owning things and earning things, trading things, unlocking abilities that you have financial impact, like all the Web3 stuff that we all know and love, liquidity pools, governance, all of it. And we want that available for every single Web2 game. And this is really like the first kind of project that will showcase how you can take a Web2 product and turn it into Web3. And once that's done, I think that just opens up floodgates. You know, we got to like eat our own dog food at least once, get into a good understanding of like, hey, how does this operate and how does it work? What are some of the concerns that we have to kind of like pre-program in or wrap our heads around? But once that's done and we can start telling Web2 games, especially in a bull market, hey, here's a really easy way for you to go from Web2 to Web3. Keep your Web2. You don't have to get rid of it. You know, if somebody just wants to do free to play, that's fine. Because these two things I think are really symbiotic. Web2 is this giant user funnel, right? Free to play, give everybody some experience, let them do whatever. It doesn't cost very much. You don't have to put money in. Most people don't. That's just a user funnel. That's how you get people like interested in the thing that you're doing. And then you get into Web3 and you're like, oh, for your hardcores, you can buy this, own that, do this, have governance, you know, participate this way, run the damn network yourself. Like, you know, kind of an unlimited amount of engagement for the power users. And I think that's the magic. You know, you cast a wide net to get a lot of power users, and then you monetize the hell out of it. And as that grows, the people that are part of that ecosystem grow along with it. So that's my game loop. That's a like a systemic loop. And we're really freaking close because we have I have a couple more changes that I have to do due to the goals game to complete that. Then we can switch our focus to Arcade Colony. We have a game that's already like functioning and playable right now that we have to then kind of like do the final step of bridging the Unity aspect to the Web3 aspect. My guess is that we'll see pre-sales in January. And if we're lucky, it'll be February that we actually like launch and put all the game out. Maybe it's March, but we're not, I don't know. There's a lot of things that are going to happen right around the freaking halving, which I think will be a pretty explosive time in general, that, you know, should be good for this Invennium Corp. You know, the two big things being here's a whole new ecosystem and a game that's sitting on top of it that's actually finally prepared to go take game after game after game and bring it in. And we'll also have the 2024 season of the MLSPA stuff come out. And I think that'll be a big deal too. So those are the kind of things that are like on the horizon. Man, I can't show stuff yet. I'll get yelled at. I'll get yelled at by too many people. I love launch and alpha. I love putting it out there, but I can't do it without serious mental attacks.
Repercussions. Yeah.
Repercussions, yeah. Of like, hey, we didn't discuss this. Nobody on the team said that you should do this, and you did it anyways. And I'm like, yeah, but it's bad. What do you want me to do? It's Pat Clark. He's so handsome. I have to go hand this out. But
So
I can't.
these would be tribal dex tokens then, these games that are
Yeah,
sort of
everything
onboarded?
will
Yeah.
live there, but we'll put it in a couple different places. We'll try to do the same thing where they're like Ethereum versions and maybe Solana versions and all these other versions, so that we want it so that people can live wherever they are, and we will meet them there. That's the way that these things grow best.
So I imagine part of the appeal would be to onboard a new game and one of these Web2 guys on Edge.io and say, hey, look, we've got access to this player base of Splinterlands players who are interested in this ecosystem, interested in Web3 gaming. You already got username sign on. They already know how it all works. You can get a lot more eyeballs on your project because it's easy to get lost in this Web2 space, right? You make a great product, but how do you actually get users? You can basically offer them that.
Yep. Yeah. All true. And as I've tried to experiment with, like, if I'm selling one of the games of why they should come, that's usually the number one appeal of, like, there's different places I can build. I guess sales work best when there's a push and a pull. So one of the pushes is they're pushed towards us because in Web2 it's hard to get revenues. So when you look at like a Steam game, the average amount of money that a Steam game makes is $50,000. But that's including all the gigantic games. So the like median thing has to be less than 50 grand. A lot of those games get hosed, make nothing. You spend years, launch it, get literally nothing or lose money. The idea that you can actually monetize your audience for these things, I think is pretty groundbreaking. Because unless you're like a AAA game studio or have a hit, you just don't make a lot of money. And I don't think that has to be the case in Web3. I think you can make a lot of money even if your game is not some gigantic hit. Okay, so that's push number one, is that they're not getting the revenues that they want. And push number two is that if they have tried doing some Web3 things and they've done it somewhere else, they're not happy with their experience. So some of these other major gaming ecosystems, like, they don't actually support growth the way that they say they will. Like, they do okay. As soon as you get into the billions, everything breaks. So Splinterlands offers something that can actually go into the billions of transactions without actually breaking. It is kind of groundbreaking and totally different than everything else. So those are the pushes of why people get here. And the pull, like you said, is the amount of people that are already here. And all of that together makes for like a hell of a system where, we don't try to ask for too much money. We're going to ask for some for services. We're going to ask for some as a rev share. And I'm hoping that there's going to be some token burns all across the ecosystem that kind of like what we do with Rebellion now, I think is really how this stuff ought to work going forward. Of like, any game we put out should include some amount of token burning as part of, like, or it either goes to the DAO or it gets burned. I think that's the way to make this stuff shine. So that's what I see happening. And I think for all the people that participate, it'll be fun to watch all these new people come in, fun to watch all these new games come in, fun to see the new capabilities that we have. And if I go all out, it's fun to live through the euphoria of the next market cycle that we're about to go through. Just remind everybody, Matt, I need you to remind me when we're all feeling euphoric, you have to be like, hey, dude, you should sell some of this. Just do that this time.
You've been warned.
You're asking the wrong guy.
Okay,
You've been warned.
Talking to the wrong guy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there's somebody in this audience is going to be like, somebody that listens to this at some point where we're like, hey, I could spend like 1/100th of my stack and get an island somewhere. When we're at that point, like, that's the time that we have to cash out. We got to remember that. Time to leave at some point. These parties are cyclical, and I want to, just remind me.
Yeah.
Someone, please.
Yeah, at the peak of the last bull, Gio was stacking the ADA Cardano, and he's already on like 100x or something. I says, at least just take 50%. Like take, because it went up to what, $4, I think, ADA.
Yeah.
And no, he didn't take anything. So now he's had to wait for
Yeah.
the next cycle. So,
Years, freaking
yeah.
years. So more cycles like that are coming. I look forward to this next one, which is imminent, and that we are already in. The chart tells me we're already in it. There's a my favorite version of this. I know we only have like a minute left, but there's a chart methodology that is like really simple, and it's really smart, and it's called Consensio. It was written or created by a guy named Tyler Jenks, and it's really just like a pattern recognition of what all traders know of the trend is your friend. The trend is your friend, and you can track that trend when all of the moving averages are going up, or all the moving averages are going down. When they're all going up, that's a bull market. When they're all going down, that's a bear market. So your audience has suggested that you guys go look at all those moving averages and tell me what you see. Are they moving up or moving down? And the Consensio goes into a lot more detail than that, but at the high level, if all the moving averages are going up, you got yourself a bull market. If they're all going down, you got yourself a bear. These things are going to last probably a couple of years. So I think we have a nice opportunity right in front of us. And I plan on riding that wave, and I think it's going to be fun and awesome. And everybody that's participating in that should have the same thrills that I do. That is not a guarantee or a promise. It's not a crystal ball. It's not financial advice. It's, I want you guys to understand where my head's at, what I think is happening. I think there's giant global changes. I think those global changes are going to rock traditional businesses. Many of them are going to go bankrupt and broke. We are going to go build this Web3 future off the corpse of the Web2 life. So you should expect some havoc and chaos. Things are going to get a little turbulent. Put your seatbelts on, wear a helmet. But on the other side of this, especially if you're already here and participating in this, it should be super exciting. So that's my view. Use that as you will. Hopefully it helps some of you. Hopefully it harms nobody. Do your own research, make your own financial decisions. But I'm excited. These are going to be some of the most wild years possible. Some of the biggest waves that I think I'll ever see in my life. And I don't know, it should be a magical time. And now I got to hop. So I thank everybody. Thanks for having me on. Sorry if I was talking too much, but
that's why we asked you on.
good times. And if they come back in like a year, you'll invite me back in a year. We'll go have a more open discussion of what happened a year ago, and then we can go also like look and be like, hey, Aggy was the biggest idiot, and he got everything wrong, and we're all broke, and we should probably murder him. Or maybe we're all living like kings on our own islands for 1/10 of our stacks, and what's that look like? And we'll find out. Tune in this time 1 year from now, and we'll see what it looks like.
Yep.
Lovely.
All right. Thanks, fellas. Talk to you
Thanks
soon.
for coming on.
Thanks for coming on.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Enjoy your day. Alrighty, so that was episode 98 with Aggy. I don't know if it was what you were expecting, but we loved it. So yeah, this is Aggy. Love your comments, your views, your thoughts. Comment below, and we will see you in next week on episode 99. Good thinking, 99. I'm Bob Fett. Peace out. Yeah, that was like freaking awesome.
That went great.
Yeah.
That was the best thing ever.
Were you recording, Bob? Did you remember to hit record?
Yeah. Bit late, but hope so.
Oh.
Yeah, the record button needs to be bigger. It's be a big red light in the corner instead of this tiny little red thing. Yeah. I've only done it once though. Come on, I've only ever done it once. But it was 10 minutes though, wasn't it? Was it? I think 10 minutes into or 5 minutes. Yeah. First time.